everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today we're going to be talking about the 4Runner. So this is a 98 Toyota 4Runner. It is a limited edition 3.4 liter V6, and it's got over 361,000 miles on it. Some people might think that's impressive, but if you know anything about Toyotas, it's a baby. You're probably going to see this a lot in the shop in the background when Mr. Squirrel is working on black powder. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about this car, a little bit about what I have planned, because it is my car, and the reason why it's sitting in the shop. So let's get into it. I've owned this car for about 13 years now. It's a good car. I've gotten it stuck in the snow. Yes, my fault, but not my fault. Someone was coming down a hill and I had to move out of the way. I have also had the greatest pleasure of my life of losing a drain plug out of the 4Runner. It was the first time I had ever changed oil by myself, solo. And what happened was, you are supposed to replace your drain plug every so often. That gasket, if it's a gasket one, it gets deformed, it gets squished, and you end up tightening it more and more, and then you end up stripping out that hole, and just not all around a good thing to have happen. So I had a new drain plug I was going to put in. I'm under the car because I fit. I actually sit comfortably under the right-hand side of the tire. And I had asked Mr. Squirrel, I know that you're supposed to torque bolts down on cars. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter what you're doing. You should torque down, I know not everyone does, but you should torque down your bolts, especially when you put a brand new drain plug in with a gasket, because that gasket needs to sit down and get seated onto the metal to make a good connection and not fall out. And I got told, hey, if it's tight, finger tighten it and then give it a good wrench. I did as I was told. A couple days later, it had gotten really cold. This is fall, almost winter time. I'm headed to work. It's dark. It's already after daylight saving. It's dark. It's thankfully wasn't raining, but it's cold. So I'm driving to work down the road, and all of a sudden my oil light keeps just flickering on and off, on and off, on and off. And I'm like, what in the heck? Did I not put enough oil in it? So I'm driving down the road, and the light's flickering on and off. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I get to a stop sign, the light goes off. I take a turn and I drive down the road, and all of a sudden it's just on. And me, being as car savvy as I was at the time, I'm still learning. I've learned a lot, but still learning. I know that when the oil light comes on and it stays on, you should probably pull over and check before you destroy your engines. I've seen enough of just rolled into the shop to know that if you don't have oil in your car, you're going to shred some gears and you're going to screw up your engine and need a brand new engine. I don't want to do that. That is not something I wanted to replace. So, pull into a safe spot. I climb out of the car. I check the oil. I check the dipstick. Pull this. Okay, there's no oil. I come down over here and there's just oil coming out and gushing. I stick my hand up in there because I can't see. It's dark and it's colder than frig. And it felt like the oil filter had popped out. And I don't know if you can see it, but the oil filter sits in there somewhere. Usually when I do it, I sit in there and I do it by feel. My car's off. I'm sitting in it. I make some phone calls. I have to call into work. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to be late. And then I call Mr. Squirrel. I felt really bad. Mr. Squirrel had been feeling sick. He was at home with the temperature, wasn't feeling good. And what do? I call him and go, hey, so there's something wrong. I have no oil. It looks like the drain plug has fallen off. Yeah, he was not happy. So we get it home. We tow it home. It's fine. We park it. We went and got a new drain plug, and a little while after that, there was kind of a little more subtle I told you so. But that day I did learn that you need to torque your drain plug to 27 foot-pounds. So that was one fun experience I had with this rig. Another thing I learned is I don't have a proper skid plate to cover the alternator when you go through puddles. I've burned through an alternator and starting contact points. Starter contact points? I don't know. Mr. Squirrel will edit this and he'll put the little thingy somewhere on what the heck I'm talking about. But yeah, I drove through a puddle because it gets wet. This is a state where we get lots of water. We get puddles. Like we live on top of a hill, but there's some places where, since it'll rain for weeks on end, we get flood spots that you have to kind of go slow through. But being on a hill, anywhere you go, there's low-lying flood spots. So I learned that you have to be really careful driving through there, because we had to replace an alternator because the water got up through the contacts. But that's because there isn't a special shield to kind of go there. So that was another thing I got to learn personally, is how to remove water from alternator contacts. Mr. Squirrel bought this special paste that you can use to help keep the water out, but the connectors are still good. I don't know what it's called. Again, car savvy enough to change oil, change tires, and do maintenance, but not car savvy enough to know what the heck things are called. Another thing people ask me all the time for some unknown reason is, did you lift that? I did not lift it. All I've done is remove the running boards. Even when it's parked next to another 4Runner that has running boards, people still insist that I might have lifted it. Do I want to lift it? Of course I do. There's actually something I've been hoping to do. I have to look into it a little more, but instead of buying a rear lift kit for the Toyota 4Runner, you can actually buy, there's no real good spot to look back here. You can actually buy, and I could be wrong, I've heard it before and I have to do a little more research, but you can buy springs out of a different model vehicle. I think it's Tacoma. I'm not 100% sure. It could even be a pre-runner, but you replace the springs on the back with that model of car and it actually gives you a couple inches of lift. Why do I want to lift Norm? I want to turn it into a mudding / trail rig. One, because that's fun to do. I've seen enough videos that looks like a blast. Two, we have two little ones that would love to make some great childhood memories to do that with. And three, because then we could go hang out with Woodchuck and maybe provide some support when he needs it when he's out there. And if you don't know who Woodchuck is, Mr. Squirrel has a video on Woodchuck and his buggy and his off-roading adventure he had this year, earlier in April. I'm sure you've also seen the short where he almost offed his brother. I'd like to do is I would like to learn how to fabricate things. So welding, I have a little bit of welding experience. I have more experience grinding and cutting. I actually help cut some of this stuff. I learned to grind. I did learn to do some sanding and body work. Before this project got stopped. So I helped kind of sand and work on some of this stuff. kind of as my first exposure to car body. So the reason Norm is now sitting in the shop, Norm used to be my daily driver, and I absolutely loved having him. He worked. He got me from point A to point B through 2 jobs. But the reason he sits here now, poor thing, the reason he sits here now is because a while back, I stopped working because I was pregnant. So I stopped driving it. And it just sat and it just sat. The other thing is, even though 2 car seats fit in here, we needed a better, newer, reliable rig. Hopefully, I will sooner or later be able to start doing stuff on Norm and be able to take you guys on the adventure of turning this into a mudding rig. And until next time, guys, thanks for visiting the workshop and DFTBA. So don't forget to be awesome. I don't know much about cars, but I do know what I like.